I, 24 female, have a brother, 32. He's got 5 kids. His eldest is Rachel, female teen. My grandmother passed when I was 16. She'd always promised him she would leave her home behind for him if she passed on. That is, until the year before she passed, he cut contact with her because she didn't help him with money, so she left it to me. My brother wasn't pleased to find out that he didn't get the house. When he found out that the house was left to me, he was still hung up on the idea that it should have been his. I came out as bi when I was teen, and my family stopped talking to me. My mother disowned me, and so I had no choice but to move in with an uncle I barely knew. I married my wife 3 years ago. I didn't contact any family, but 2 years ago, my brother's daughter Rachel reached out to me that year. She was asking for a place to stay and said she came out as gay and got disowned by my brother. I drove 2 hours to pick her up and she didn't have anything with her, not even a hair tie. When I brought her home, I shared some of my things with her, and the next day I made sure to go buy the things she'd need. I enrolled her into an online school because we live far from any schools, and I got her a psychologist. About a year later, my brother contacted me. He lost his job and asked me for a place to stay. I told him he could come stay with us. I tried making space for them by clearing out 3 rooms, one for my brother, the rest for the children who could share. He and his other children often cornered Rachel. They only got worse with each second they stayed with me. His children were loud and they were constantly arguing, they kept breaking things and would constantly terrorize my dog, etc. All this continued for 6 months. My wife and I went out on a trip for a week. She had a business trip and her boss said I could come. About 2 days after we arrived at the resort, Rachel called us crying. She told us we needed to go home ASAP. We did. We returned to my brother having painted his and his children's rooms, saying they should get to make themselves feel at home. Rachel told them during an argument that my wife and I were more of a family to her than they were, which resulted in them withholding her PS from her, one of the twins stealing her makeup, and blocking her from any source of entertainment. I threw my brother and his children out when I saw what was happening. I refused to let them back in. My brother claimed that the house was supposed to be his. It's been 2 months since, and I have not stopped getting contacted by relatives, telling me that he's my brother and he needs help, telling me that I stole his child from him, that I have enough money to rent him a place for free to stay while he gets back on his feet, and I've even received a threat or 2. My friends say that my family isn't entirely wrong, that I should try to help where I can, that his children aren't even in school anymore, and that I'm setting his children up for failure. I honestly do feel guilty, like I could help with food or schooling at least. It isn't his children's fault they were raised in such an environment. But overall, I'm just overwhelmed and don't know what to do. So, am I the idiot? You are the idiot. Why in the ever-living heck did you think it was a good idea to allow the family that disowned Rachel to move in with you all while Rachel was also living with you? I cannot believe for a second that she was ever okay with that and didn't tell you about it. Also, you threw them out only when it actually began to inconvenience you and your wife personally. Really makes me wonder how much you were thinking about her welfare this whole time. Bingo! Who does this? OP, you rescued her from them only to turn around and bring her abuser to her. None of this makes any sense. So you also knew he was a mooch off your grandmother and still thought he'd be different with you? I'm sorry, but you allowed this all to happen and absolutely knew better. Good luck repairing Rachel's trust, Auntie. This is Opie's brother and Rachel's father. I'm sure they were optimistic and didn't realize it would be terrible, and Opie kicked the family out the second Rachel asked. This person took in their kid cousin, took care of her, and kept her safe, so it's completely unfair of you to imply Opie doesn't care about her. Not the idiot, Opie. You aren't putting them on the street. Their behavior is incompatible with staying in your house. If they restrain themselves in any way, they would be welcome in your house. Also, who decides to paint someone else's house without them knowing? Who wastes time and money painting a temporary place? That's weird and kind of implies they weren't planning on leaving anytime soon. Just because you're all blood family does not force you to keep him in your house. I'm sure those family members reaching out to you have the space for his children if they're that concerned. Update: am I the idiot for putting my brother and his children on the street? I didn't think it was a good idea. When my brother reached out to me, I consulted Rachel first and foremost. I asked Rachel whether or not she wanted me to let him stay for a while or move out. She said she wanted to try and fix things with her father. Of course, I asked her whether or not she was sure. I reminded her that they'd be out when she said she wanted them out. Of course, I do agree with you all. I should have ignored him and pretended he didn't reach out. Unfortunately, Rachel suffered and there isn't much I can do about that now, other than being there for her. Rachel deserves all the support she can get. Thank you for your advice. My husband took me out to a birthday dinner, my birthday. While waiting for the food, I saw an old co-worker and told my husband I wanted to speak to them for a moment. While talking, I kept looking back toward our table to see if our food was out and to check with my husband. No food that I could tell, I'm super nearsighted, and he seemed to be reading something on his phone. I wrapped up the convo, which may have been 10 or 15 minutes, only to come back to him finishing his food. I asked if he was done already, why he didn't let me know the food was out, etc. And he started saying he had small portions, didn't think it was a big deal, didn't want to interrupt my conversation, etc. I asked why he didn't motion toward me or something. He said he didn't think it would be a big deal for him just to eat. Now, I understand what some may think about me walking over to speak to the former co-worker. It was a quick 10 to 15 minute conversation and moving on. I even asked if he minded if I went over and spoke to them for a few minutes, because I hadn't seen them in quite some time. This wasn't a super fancy sit-down restaurant either. Our budget was tight, so we went to Cracker Barrel. I feel like he could have at least let me know the food was out or something. We've been married 16 years, 2 teens, etc. Nothing like this has ever happened before. You are the idiot. Walking away for 15 minutes when you had food ordered and were supposed to be celebrating with your husband is way ruder than your husband eating his food while it was hot and fresh. You should be apologetic, not indignant. I think it was longer than 15 minutes because how could OP start a convo, look a few times, see there was no food, end a convo, go back and hubby be done eating all in 15 minutes? LMAO. If someone did that to me while on a date and we weren't married, I'd left the money for my food and tip on the table and politely left. Incredibly rude. Imagine the poor man sitting there for 10 or 15 minutes with food in front of him, gradually getting cold and gross, just waiting for his wife to remember. And I'm ridiculously nearsighted is the worst excuse ever for supposedly not realizing food had come. You weren't looking as much as you implied to miss the waiter at the table and your husband eating. You chose to prioritize that conversation over your birthday dinner with him. I, male 23, have been with my girlfriend 22 for 5 years. We're both part-time college students and full-time workers. I lucked out and got a decent job making around $60,000 to $65,000 a year depending on sales, and I also have a rental property that nets around $300 a month. My girlfriend works as a dental assistant making $19 an hour, and working 36 hours a week equates to roughly $37,000 a year, with bonuses. I've always usually paid for things because I knew I made more money. Recently we moved in together, and I was okay with paying for almost everything because I was under the impression my girlfriend had no money, so I wanted her to save up. I didn't want to burden her, as her schooling is more complex than mine. She would always say that she had no money because of the bills that she had to pay. My girlfriend got a car paid for by her dad and got college for free through work, so she pays car insurance and whatever she spends on her credit card. I, on the other hand, had to put down all the deposits for the apartment. I currently pay $1,000 for rent, plus roughly $400 for all other utilities. On top of that, I still have to pay my car and my college tuition. My girlfriend does help with buying some groceries and helps with the laundry, but groceries for the month don't equal $1,400. Recently, my girlfriend left a bank receipt out, and I saw the amount of her total savings when I glanced over, which turned out to be $40,000 in a savings account. Now I'm questioning why I'm paying more for our living expenses. We recently argued about money, and I brought up her savings account. My girlfriend got mad that I found out and is accusing me of snooping around her stuff. And now she's trying to say that I make almost double, so I should pay for most of the expenses. So I need to know, am I the idiot for asking her to help pay more? Edit, my savings account is nowhere near hers. My savings is around $5,000 because of the rental property I purchased about 4 months ago. Wait, hang on, you earn twice as much as her and you own a rental property, but you don't think it's reasonable to split bills based on income because she has more cash savings? You are the idiot. Your rental property is an asset with a value of $40,000 or more. If your girlfriend can't cover half the bills without cutting into her savings, she'd be quickly dwindling the savings. Are you having to borrow against the rental property to pay your share of the bills? If so, you're in an apartment you can't afford. What? She lied about her inability to afford things when she had $40,000. She only buys groceries occasionally. That's not even close to paying a fair amount. Not the idiot. You guys should split the bills accordingly to what you earn or save. If you make more than her, then you contribute more than her. Likewise, if the roles are reversed. For example, 60% 40% if it can't be 50-50. Yes, she has a lot of money saved up, but that doesn't mean she has to pay more now. However, she can now help around with bills, groceries, etc. Agree. It doesn't matter so much what you both have in savings or properties. What does matter is that you both make money, but only one of you is paying any bills. Also, if she's keeping something as important as financials a secret, she mustn't see you as a long-term relationship. Before I start, I'd like to say I'm a big girl. No shame in that. I love myself just the way I am, and I've been living by the motto, be you, everybody else is taken. Mother-in-law, dear husband's mom, always commented about my weight. Since I got pregnant, she started making more comments while low-key shaming me for what I eat. Whenever I visited, she'd give me a smaller plate, portion, cup, even spoons. She also buys me small-sized clothes even though I'm in my second trimester and those clothes don't fit. My sister-in-law decided to throw me a baby shower after my husband denied it when my sister offered to throw me one. The whole side of my in-laws' family is invited. However, my mom refused to come after my husband's words to my sister, another story for later. I got there and mother-in-law was in charge of serving food to the guests. All that was served was cakes and juice. I got hungry from talking and I got up to eat some cake. The second I put my hand on the cake, mother-in-law grabbed my arm and said I gained enough weight already and that if I keep this up, her son would not be happy living with a large walrus. I was shocked I didn't know how to react, especially since she said this out loud. She looked at me in a sorry not sorry kind of way. I put the cake down and grabbed my stuff and started walking. Her daughter stopped me, saying I can't leave mid-party and embarrass her like that. I told her to tell her mom to leave if she wanted me to stay, but she went off and said, "Are you crazy? She's my mom. You want me to kick her out in front of everybody?" So I turned around and kept walking. I called mom to come to pick me up and went home. Dear husband came home looking furious. He asked me to explain what I did at the baby shower and why. I mentioned what his mom did, and he started ranting about how I messed this up over something so minor. I told him it wasn't minor, in my opinion, since she literally cut me off food and didn't let me eat when I was hungry. He said that his mom meant well and that I needed to get rid of this easily offended mindset immediately before I passed it down to our son. He said that cakes are not essential foods and that this was not a good enough reason to walk out of the baby shower that his mom and sister put a ton of money, time and effort into. He said I had hours to call and fix things, but I refused. I went to stay with my mom because he wouldn't stop pressuring me to call and apologize for what happened. He kept talking about how angry and let down his mom and sister felt and called me ungrateful and spiteful for doing what I did. Am I overreacting here? Edit. My sister is infertile and has been for years. My husband claimed that she's become obsessed with the baby simply because she bought me stuff for the baby as gifts and wanted to throw me a baby shower. My sister is a great person, and I have no doubt that she only did all that just because of how great she is and will be as an aunt. My husband kept insisting there was something wrong with her, which led to a fight between them, and he called her a possessive witch. My mom kicked him out, and my sister cut contact with him. The issue got worse with my brother-in-law, her husband, arguing with my husband. Not the idiot. So your own sister wasn't allowed to throw you a baby shower, which then caused your mom not to attend. Instead, your husband allowed his sister to throw one, where your mother-in-law bullied you. Are he and his family trying to control you, isolate you from your family? OP needs to be careful because that's exactly how it sounds. Please take caution, OP. Your situation with these people sounds extremely toxic and dangerous. Don't let your dear husband manipulate you into isolation from your family because that's exactly what he's attempting to do. This is not a man you want to raise a child with. Agree. Any man that would allow his mother to verbally abuse and deny his wife food and then gaslight and berate his wife for standing up for herself is a massively abusive idiot. This is divorce territory now. Stay somewhere safe. Better yet, make him leave the house while divorce proceedings happen. If I were you, I would get the heck out. You have excellent self-love. Don't let them take that from you, and protect your child from those people. Heaven forbid he gets a little chubby as he grows up, because then he will be made to feel like he is less too. But he won't have built up the thick skin it takes to deal with them as you have, and what it does to him could be much worse. I grew up being called fat by my mother and developed a disorder that I struggle with today. I, 32 female, married my husband 33 2 years ago, and we just had our first child together. We had a relatively intimate wedding and only invited a few people, close family and friends. My parents divorced when I was 20 and my dad remarried when I was 25. His new wife has a daughter, Kelly, who's 26. I've lived in a different country since I graduated from university, so I've only met Kelly on a handful of occasions and we're not close. However, I included her in the invite list because she's part of my dad's family. On my wedding day, Kelly showed up in a pure white cocktail dress. It was extremely over the top. Think mid-thigh slit, plunging neckline. Very much a draw attention to yourself type of dress. Even ignoring the colour, it was super inappropriate as we got married in a church. On the day itself, I decided just to ignore it and make the most of my day, but that didn't stop members of my family and my husband's family from asking me who she was and if I'd given her permission. It was just unnecessary drama, and while it didn't spoil the wedding, it certainly tainted it a little. I spoke to my dad about it afterward, and he told me that he hadn't realised what she would wear until they got to the church. She travelled separately, or he'd have told her not to. He said he'd spoken to her about it, and she said she didn't realise it would be inappropriate to wear white because the wedding was in a different country. We got married in France, and I refuse to believe she genuinely thought the rules on wedding attire are drastically different here. Anyway, we've just sent out invitations for our son's baptism, and this time I didn't include Kelly on the invite to my dad and his wife. He called me to ask if it was an oversight, and I said no, it wasn't. I didn't want her there after what she did at my wedding. It was embarrassing, and I didn't want my son's baptism to be tainted the same way. My dad's wife is very upset and has stated clearly that if she's not invited, none of them will be going. So it puts my dad in a tough position, but I don't want her there. Am I the idiot for not allowing her to come? Not the idiot. Your stepsister knew what she was doing. She's an attention seeker, and your dad should grow a spine. If he doesn't attend the baptism, that's on him, not you. Everyone knows that no one can wear white to a wedding except the bride. There are exceptions, but only if the bride communicates them in advance. If you want to be petty, you could do the same to her, if she ever gets married. She also showed up in club clothes at a church wedding. I don't want to know what outfit she thinks is appropriate for a baptism. Also, I can never buy the excuse, I didn't know the rules for wedding attire. What are you, living under a rock? White is off unless the bride says it's okay. And for goodness sake, have you heard of Google? Use those vocabulary skills and type wedding etiquette France. How hard can it be? She wore that dress on purpose, and she will most likely wear or do something to focus on her again, like to announce her pregnancy. Wouldn't put it past the stepsister. You want close family and friends, and she's neither. Also, she's an adult and shouldn't expect to tag along everywhere her mother goes. I hope your father will attend regardless of whether his wife does.